Hello, it's your friend and artist, Lily. I'm going to do the first in a series of videos on creating an altar book. For those of you who've never done it before, or if you just want to learn more about my practice, or need accountability or inspiration along the journey, then hopefully these videos will help you. I recorded this video once already, and there was no sound when I went to upload it, so I'm learning lessons as I go. I don't know what the lesson was, but I did test this. Audio seems to be working, so we're going for it, and maybe I'll be more laconic this time around. I've got my notes, and we'll be referring to them, but also I'm going to show you some empty altered books, and I'm going to show you some of my own altered books along the way, just as examples of what I'm talking about. So this video is about the first step in creating an altered book, which is actually choosing your book. And especially if this is your first time doing an altered book, I put together like some ideas on the type of book you might look for that will assist you in your creativity instead of maybe getting in your way. And just in general, like, you know, when you select the book, there are a couple things you can look for that will just make your life easier, basically, as you're altering. And but it goes without saying that you can alter any book you want. And this is not an exhaustive list of criteria, nor is it meant to be like, you could only do things my way. So this is just to help and help you identify a book you might want to alter, mainly if, like, when I say those words, you have no clue in your head what you're going to do. Or if you're deciding between a couple books, this could be useful. So the first book I grabbed, I have a whole shelf of books. Ooh, that's my thumb. Mostly books waiting to be altered in there. The top shelf are my own altered books, but so that's a whole little shelf of books that I want to alter, that I've picked up. And so I grabbed a few from there that I think would be my top choices. And this is the first one I wanted to go through with you, and what I like about it, what I'm drawn to, and how I think it would make for a cool altered book, and how it would assist me in the process, be my friend in the process, instead of making my life more difficult. So the first thing I love about this book is the cover. It is this awesome, like, mustardy yellow, which is one of my favorite colors. And then also it's like a fabric. You know, this is an older book, published, I'm guessing 20s or, no, online. This was published in 1969, at least this printing of it. So anyway, it's called The Psychology of the Child. That doesn't matter as much. We'll get into theme a little bit later in the video. But some really nice things about this book are the fact that it's a hardcover. You can absolutely alter a softcover book if you want to. I never have, so I can't give you a ton of feedback on that. I've done some spreads in other people's soft-covered altered books, and it was fine. And given the fact that we're going to be mailing these to each other, I don't know, it's tempting. But I really like a hardcover. I think it just, like, it just really protects what you're doing. One idea would be to do a softcover book and then maybe create your own hardcover out of cardboard or something at a later date, because I just feel like you need that firmness. But the other nice things about, you know, an older, a vintage, if you will, hardcover book is that usually the pages are going to be stitched together. So these little, wait, my friend told me what these are called. These are called signatures, each one of these sections. And the signatures are then stitched together and stitched to the binding to make a book. So if it's not stitched, then it will be glued. This Nancy Drew mystery book is an example of one that's glued. So the big difference in this is going to be how easily we can manipulate these pages. and how well they're going to hold up. So advantages of the stitching, I can still easily rip a page out of this book. And some pages will be easier to rip out than others, but obviously this is coming right out. That's always good in an altered book because we're often removing pages to either use once again in the art, or we're removing pages because the book would be way too fat if I altered every single page. So that's nice that it pulls out nicely. I now have, maybe I use this as like, we often need like pages between after you've done a spread, just to let that page dry or to keep elements from interfering with each other. Or maybe I use this as a pocket or a bookmark down the road. We'll get to all of that, and it's all fun. But, so that's one thing. The page tears out nicely, but then what I'm left with is also still a very nice, like, still intact spine, right? So it's my taking that page out didn't mess up the rest of the book. Whereas with a glued, it just doesn't hold up as well. It's not that you can't do it. Again, it's just, it won't hold up as well. And even though I actually haven't pulled out any pages from this book yet, it already is feeling less stable. Like it's already feeling like these pages, I can just, yank on it and it would probably come out. So there's pros and cons. I mean, there's nothing wrong with using a book where it's easy to remove pages. But just make sure that the rest of the book is still going to be in, good condition. And then, of course, the other thing about the stitched pages versus the glued, I think, is just the spine is going to be a lot more stable. I'll show you one of my books that, I'm dropping elements, one of my books that is a stitched signatures together to form a book. This is my current binding. You can see I'm really stretching this book to its limits, but for the most part, the binding has held completely intact. I haven't had any problems with it. And this is a hardcover book that originally was this pink color, and even though I covered it over with some wallpaper, that pink color still influenced. That pink hardcover still influenced my overall cover design. So again, I'm drawn to the color, I'm drawn to the type of book it is, and then the weight of the pages too, or the type of the page. This is a very very nice paper. I won't go into the different kinds of paper because it's not really my expertise, but you can tell if you're feeling a book. Here's an old book. You can even see the difference in the paper looking at it. This one has aged, and maybe it just wasn't stored as well. It wasn't housed properly. You can smell it. These pages are more decayed. Again, I would still use this. This is still one of my choices for something to alter. But I have to keep in mind, like, I might not be doing a lot of like water-based art in this, like watercolor, or the pages are going to tear, they're going to rip easily, they're going to bleed into each other. It's just something to keep in mind. It's not like a one or the other. I mean, it is a one or the other because we're not only altering one book, but you can pick the one that feels right for you. These are very nice weighted page. I don't know if they would have been letterpressed in the 60s, but they have a nice sheen, on the outside. And so that makes me think like I can apply my glue at will. I might be able to do some watercoloring in here because the pages are thick enough and in good enough shape to hold up to that. Finally, the thing I like about this book is actually the theme, and is probably in the end why I would choose it. Because for me, as someone who really likes to interact with the words on the page as my approach to altering, I find it really exciting when the theme is something that I'm either interested in, curious about, or that I'm like against totally, and I want to interact with the words in that way. So, you know, a book on the psychology of the child from the 70s, it's got some really cool, like, chapter titles that I could play around with, the development of perception, symbolic function, operations of thought. So all of these might, the pre-adolescent, all of these might sort of point me in a certain direction when I'm doing my own art. There's a lot about memory, of course. But also just like the actual words on the page they're going to be slightly like clinical or scientific, but that sounds interesting to me, to be able to go in and pull out words that then create a whole new text. And in fact, that's another reason this book is a really good example, because this book was a religious text and all of the chapter titles were the joy of something, which I changed to just this page of all joy. And this was like a super interesting, and still is a super interesting text to alter because of my personal background. I have a background with a religion, and I'm fairly anti-religion at this point in my life. But it was fun to take these pages and take the text that was on the page and then reinterpret it in to be something that that aligns with my values. This is a good example of like where I chose words on the page and then rewrote them to be she who possesses limitless power, this mother of ours. So I chose the words that spoke to me and made a new text, which I would assume you're going to do at least once throughout this process. So paying attention to the title of the book, the theme of the book, the language of the book, the words in the book, that might be the reason you go. You know, that might be the reason where I would say, yes, I want to do this because I want to interact with this material. It's a bonus that I love the color, the pages are in good condition, it's been taken care of, they're stitched, so I don't have to worry as much about wear and tear, or I can use a variety of artistic approaches. Other cool things about this book are it has an index. That's always exciting. Anything extra, right? Table of contents. All this stuff is really exciting. Just, you know, if you want to get away from just blackout poetry on a page of text. There aren't a lot of images or tables or figures or anything like that. There's a few, but not a lot in this book. I think the Nancy Drew book is actually even jumping off from the cover. This is a very exciting cover to think about altering, because often what I'm doing with my altered books is I'm actually adding images to these otherwise boring covers. Someone else actually added this image to the cover of one of my books. So this is cool because this gives me something to maybe already work around, and I might even like choose my theme. I also love that the opening, I don't know what this is called, before you even get started, that section, but the opening and the back already have this beautiful blue, almost like toile-ish print. So that's exciting. That could really point me in a certain direction. And then, of course, this is a book for young adults, published during a certain time period where they included images, probably once a chapter. I'm not exactly sure. Well, maybe not even that often. But so there are a couple images in here. Again, that's fun. Like if that's something, if you're scared by the thought of just page after page of text, first of all, don't be, because you don't have to use the text on the page. You can treat it as a blank page, which I have done. But there are books that you may find that have less text on each page. For example, this is the book I just showed you, and this is more of like a niche like dictionary. And so it has a small amount of text on each page, and then each page also has an image. Totally different way of altering. Here's a completed spread where on one half I interacted with the text on the page and I chose some words, and then on the other half, I ignored the text on the page. So both approaches are valid, and then obviously I made like a thematically color storied double page spread. So that's really exciting. If I ever see like quirky books like this, I just pick them up because, they're cool. And this one's called More About Words. This is also a stitched pages, and even though these pages aren't in nearly as good condition, like they are definitely more brittle than the Psychology of the Child book, they have held up well to various artistic approaches. And again, one thing you can always do if your pages are too brittle but you really want to use that book is, I'll show you how to glue two pages together to just thicken your surface, and then it'll last longer. Anyway, so again, take all this with a grain of salt. If you run into a book and you're just like, I absolutely am so curious about this, it's calling to me, it's speaking to me, then do it. This is a book where the pages were extremely brittle, actually. But I loved the size. I loved the fact that it was like sort of a Victorian era novel. I loved that it was about pleasure or something along those lines. I think I named it Pleasure. Yes, I named it Pleasure. But it was like a romantic story. And then I loved just the look of the text on the page. All of the chapter titles were really cool too. So this was one I did as part of a circle where each person was assigned a chapter and they altered that entire chapter, which you can see people go about in different ways. This was the one that I altered, which again, I mostly interacted with the words on the page. Other people, this person did the same, like really paid attention to what is there. And then other people kind of, did some of both. Anyway, it's always exciting to look back at finished pieces. It's motivating. But yes, these pages are not nearly as crisp, but it has worked out okay. There's also, a lot of these pages I need to go in now and maybe like take out whole chapters because the book is getting to be so thick. Yeah, let me check what else. I want to show you one more book. Yeah, so are there images? Are there not images? How much text is on the page? What's the size of the text? Look for diagrams, maps, index, table of contents, all of these things that I call richness, because all of that extra stuff, and including the words and the size of the words and even the language of the text, all of that is going to be sort of like what you are or are not interacting with. So I would say pay attention to those things and then see how that informs your choice. This is the final book, empty book, that I want to alter, that I want to show you, because this is more of a children's book, and this is much, although it still has a lot of text, it's much more image based. So in this approach, I could still, and I've done one other book like this where it was a lot of imagery, and I still ended up trying to use the text on the page, but it's not like my jumping off point might be more either the actual images present or just like whatever theme I had given myself. So in a way, a book like this, it's cool because it's a larger surface area, but it's still probably skinny enough to like stick in the mail. So it's a larger surface area. These pages are, I think these pages are glued. No, I think they're stitched actually. Yeah, these are stitched. But what's cool about this is it can give you more freedom, because you can either totally disregard what's here and just treat these as blank pages that you're gonna create art based on some theme you've chosen, or like you go with the theme of the work. Hop, Skim, and Fly is such a cool title too. And also what I love about this book, and if I were altering this book, is this color story, which is odd and like totally rad, but like very odd. And that would really be cool just to see like if I could be inspired by these colors throughout the book. So that's one restriction I might put into place for myself. I mean, look at this, you know, monotone green. Not monotone, but you know what I mean when two colors are close to each other. Yeah, so there's lots of like, if you don't like bugs, I don't think you would ever choose this. Unless it's like exposure therapy. But there's lots of cool things. You could do some stitching, you could do watercolors, because it's all black and white too. So you could really bring color to this book. Or, you know, it could be it could remain a black and white text, and you could, like, one of your rules that you set up for the book could be to only use black and white, or gray, or, you know, like, there's all kinds of, this just, like, gives me like so many more ideas, I guess, in a way, because it's already such a specific book, such a specific artistic style. So it's like sort of lending itself to like creating these restrictions, which I'm going to talk about in the next video, is once you have chosen your book, deciding what the theme is going to be, and you know, coming up with a list of rules. This is an example of a rules page that I made. All of that is to come, okay? So look for a nice, well taken care of, can be obviously used book. Hardcover, I recommend, even though it's going to be slightly more expensive to mail. I think it's worth it. What else? The binding, look at the binding. Are the pages being held together well? Are they already falling out? Does it lay flat? This is like flat, you know, this totally lays flat in some places. And what that means is it's going to, again, that's going to make my life easier when I'm trying to create art. These don't as much, but I think I could probably force this. Because if it has stitched pages, I think you can pretty much get it to lay flat once you've got it broken in. So that's another thing to keep in mind. What's the theme material? What's the title? What's the subject matter? Are you interested in interacting with that? Does it appeal to you to, like, are there words on the page? You know, just like, don't read entire sections, but just open it and look for words, you know. Here's one page. I have recognition, evocation, sensory motor assimilation. Like, already, that's kind of cool, right? So when you're looking at the books, pick them up, hold them, how do they feel? And just like trust your instincts. Are you attracted to it? If you are, then it's probably the one. So I hope this was helpful. Let's try to choose our books within the next week, and then I'll send out the next video about theme and rules, and then after that we'll actually get going. Okay, thank you. Let me know if you have questions.